You're listening to So You Want to Start a Business podcast, and I'm your host, Ingrid Thompson, and I love cards. I have a lifetime collection of cards for all occasions, greeting cards, holiday cards, all kinds of cards. My guest today is Kelli Spanier, and more than 12 years ago, she started making cards for a whole bunch of reasons. And she tells us all about how she has grown Colette Paperie from those first cards into what is now a global company. Hello, and thanks for being here, for spending your precious time with me and my guests. Business, and especially the financial side of business, has become overcomplicated, and I aim to simplify things. My business is healthynumbers.com.au, and I am on a mission to help every business owner understand how money works in their business, because I believe everyone deserves to be financially savvy when it comes to understanding how money works. In this podcast, we meet business owners and we delve into their wisdom, their lessons learned, to offer easy business life hacks and debunk common business myths. I'm keen to give you tangible and tactical tools, tips, and tricks to revolutionize how you build and grow your business. My mission is to help small business owners find lasting financial safety. I wrote the book, So You Want to Start a Business. This book helps you understand business fundamentals and find your level of financial safety. It's the only advertising on the podcast and my guest, and pretty much every day someone somewhere in the world buys a copy. Thank you if you have bought a copy for yourself or for a friend or a colleague. If you want to buy a copy, head to your local independent bookseller or wherever you buy your books online to order your copy of So You Want to Start a Business, the book. Now, let's listen to how Kelli Spanier created Colette Paperie. Hello, and here we are today with Kelli Spanier. How are you, Kelli? Thank you so much for making the time to be here.
I'm good. Hi.
Hey, hi. Now, it's yesterday where you are, and it's today because you are, where in the world are you?
I'm nearby Cincinnati, which is technically in Ohio, but I'm actually in Kentucky. So a little complicated in the U.S.
But it's somewhere there in the middle, isn't it? You're right there.
Yeah, it is right in the middle. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's yesterday evening, and thank you so much for jumping on the podcast at this time of night.
Sure.
Okay, let's jump into your business. What is your business? How do you describe it?
I have a greeting card business. I like to describe it as just humorous and a little irrelevant. It's called Colette Paperie, and it's mainly an online business, and I sell to stores also that buy them.
Yeah, I am so excited for this conversation because it's such a unique business. And, you know, looking at your cards, I want all of them. I love cards. I have drawers full of cards. I love cards, and I know that people love cards. So where are you? Colette Paperie, and where's the best place for people to find your cards?
Probably just at colettepaperie.com.
Yeah.
That's where you can find absolutely everything that I've made. And the stores, they kind of have like a limited amount when they order. They don't order everything, and there's a whole lot on the website.
Yeah, and you have a fun Instagram account. It's the same name, and your Facebook. All of the things are there. So people can go find that right now. Okay, so when did you start making these cards and doing this?
It's been about 12 years. 12 to 13. I don't know. It's kind of a gray area exactly when it began, but it was.
It's been a long time, isn't it?
It has been a long time. And you kind of said that you're addicted to cards. Well, I do want to say that, and the true addiction to cards is creating a card company. So that might be next for you. But that is totally how I got into it. You know, I've always really loved cards. They're fun.
And so is that why you started a business in cards? Why did you start the business?
Well, I've always been pretty obsessed with cards, but I've kind of always dabbled in it. But it was really clear when I wanted to do it was when my mom was in hospice care, which was, right about 12 years ago. She was getting all of these cards that were, kind of sad, and she really needed to laugh. She was pretty sad, and everything around us was sad. It was just was not a great environment for someone that,
Mm,
was running out of time. So I
mm,
kind of recognized, okay, there's kind of a need in the market here, like
mm,
either funny cards in general, or maybe just my take on what's funny.
mm.
My goal is still to really make people laugh out loud, but still kind of maintain a true sincerity of sending it also. So that's kind of the balance I always try to kind of keep.
Yeah, yeah. And it's,
Funny but
it's
sweet.
anybody that's had a need for a card in that hospice, sympathy, any of that kind of, like post when somebody's passed away, is that it's so standard, isn't it? Like there's just
It
all of
really
this
is.
flourishy writing and the roses and the bunch.
Oh yeah, the roses.
And it's hard to find something that's different, and it's hard to find something that expresses what you want to say to somebody. So it's a
Right.
beautiful reason to have started, and of course you've gone on to create other things. What did you
Yes.
want from the business? So that was, you wanted to provide cards for other people, but what did you want, Kelly, you
Um,
as a business person?
I kind of reflect on this a little bit. I have a really hard time knowing what I really wanted. I was mourning my mom's death,
Mm,
and I didn't really know what I was doing. It was kind of cathartic to me to actually create things tangible, like with my
yeah,
hands. I've
yeah,
always been, I wanted to be creative. I wanted to make things, but it helped me kind of course, like, laugh about stuff, but also just to do something with myself, because I wasn't doing a whole lot right then. It had
yeah,
helped me just kind of, and some of it was just passing the time, just trying to get through each day. Um, but
yeah.
I don't know that I completely knew what I was doing in the beginning, but I certainly I kind of fell into a groove, I guess, when eventually.
And that's one of the reasons we've got you on the show, because you
Yeah.
went from not really knowing what you were doing to having actually created this amazing business. So, is there a
Mhm.
moment in this time, and I'm guessing there's probably maybe more than one, but because this is one of my favorite questions, is that this business felt real and you go, oh, I'm in business? Was there a moment where you can relate to that moment?
Yeah, it was probably well, yeah, two moments. Yeah, a few moments.
A few, but
The
yeah.
very first moment, I think, was when I got my first wholesale customer,
Yes.
and I brought my cards into this person's office. Somehow, I just emailed them, and like it was a store that I really loved, and I somehow got a meeting, and I showed him my cards, and he placed an $800 order, and I was like, oh my goodness, like what, this is happening, this is truly happening. And it was crazy, and I still love that store so much for like giving me a chance, because
Mm,
I was really new at it at the time. So I
mm.
can't I was not professional. I didn't it was not like I was really ready for the meeting. But they gave me a chance, and that was great. And then, like, there's been moments along the way where stores will just email me that they just can't keep my cards in stock. They're selling them so quickly, and that the cards really fill the need. And we love to hear people laughing in the store, because that's like an icebreaker for the store owner
Yes.
to kind of chat with their customers. And I was like, that's so cool. Like, so you have this like personal connection with your customer, and like it's coming kind of authentically, I guess. So I kind of loved that too. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
couple answers there.
I love that somebody actually gave you that first chance to place an
Yes.
$800 order. And I'm going to guess you probably didn't have an invoice system, and you probably didn't
No,
have a purchase order, like you didn't have the
no, I
the, the
had nothing.
contract kind of stuff in the background. It sort
I
of
didn't
takes you by
have
surprise, doesn't it?
anything.
Yeah. And there's nothing quite like, I don't know if anyone listening has ever had this happen, where you're looking at cards and you just can't help it. You laugh out loud. And it is, you kind of look
Yes.
around the store and you think, has
Uh-huh.
anybody heard me do this? And
Yep, that's
because
my customer right
it's
there.
it's that laugh out
That's
loud
my
moment,
girl.
isn't it? Yeah. Cards
sure
are
is.
so important, isn't it? All right. So
Yes.
you didn't really know how you got that appointment, but you must have done something to get it. But so how did you get those early customers? What did you learn about, as you went on and you started to realize how to do this properly? Like, what would you tell our listeners about how do you go about, getting those early customers? Because that's the hard part, isn't it? It's those first few.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that I started just making like a limited number of designs, and my customers were my few customers that I had, which are still my customers today, by the way, which is pretty cool.
Congratulations.
Yeah, like, I mean, they really stuck around. But they kind of said, like, you don't have enough. Like, do you have do you have a wedding card? Do you have a new baby card? My neighbor just, it's like, it's this long list of all these connections that we all have. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I need a card for every situation. So it was kind of like, it was overwhelming. Thinking like, oh, to have a card line, I really need to think up many more ideas. So it was a little overwhelming, but it's like, now I have probably 400 different designs. So it's, there's plenty there now, but it took a long time to get there.
Yeah. So when you have more than 400 designs, this is a question I hadn't thought about asking you. Do you know them all? Like, are they like?
Oh, yes, I sure do.
You do?
Yeah, I really do. And I know what color envelope goes with them too, which is a little scary.
Yeah, so there's actually a real process to each one, that it has its own, like it has its own front and its inside, and then it has a color. That's amazing. Yep. Okay, so today, so you get people to your website and you sell cards in stores. So what I was going to ask you back there was that, so at that time, were you holding down a job as well? Was this kind of your side hustle, or had you made the transition?
Well, it was kind of a little hairy there at the beginning because I didn't really know if I could do this.
Yes.
And I did not have a job, and then I picked up a job because I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. Like, I just, I had my dad in my ear saying like health insurance and 401k, and all of this stuff. So it was kind of like, I was afraid to really take the plunge. But something that I've really noticed, and I love sharing with people, is that it's amazing that when you quit your job, suddenly like the bridges open up and you're like, wow, I can do anything now. And like, it's amazing how much that job was eating at you and taking up all your space in your brain. Yeah. And I think that once you sign the letter, saying, no, I'm done with this, I think that the world just opens, and it feels so good to kind of think like, okay, I'm the only person that owns me right now. Yeah. And I can do something else. I can do anything else. And it's like the world is just, well, your oyster, but I find that saying really disgusting, so I don't like to use it, but that really fitted right here.
Yeah, I don't need oysters either, and I think they're such smart little creatures, we don't need to. So I'm with you on that. The world is yours. That's all it needs to be. It's yours.
Such a weird.
And the truth is, if it doesn't work out, you can get another job, or you can figure out ways to get more money. And having
it's not the end of the world.
It's not. And not that we're encouraging anybody to quit their job. Like, honestly, you need to do the maths and figure out that it's going to be viable. The thing is that if it isn't earning as much as it is, then you can get another job, and there's other things you can do. I had a guest
You'll figure it out.
A guest recently who sold things and who figured out ways to make money, and it actually makes you work harder in the business, doesn't it?
I think so. Yeah. Yes. I mean, your sales are your like rewards.
Yes.
And so the harder you work, the harder, like the more you can get in return. And it's something that really didn't exist in the job. In the job, you're working really hard and there's no reward really. Or it takes a very long time to get a reward. So it kind of sucks your soul a little bit. Right?
It certainly does for a lot of people. And you can work this much or this much in a job, and the reward is the same because the paycheck just comes in at that same amount. So yeah. So let's have a chat about money. How did you figure out to get a price point to the, how many cards do you need to sell to figure out, how much to pay your rent? Like, how do you approach the numbers of this? Help us with that.
Well, I really kind of was just winging it for the majority of the years. I am embarrassed to say I really have been terrible about figuring much of anything out. But I look at the market and, I try to get bulk discounts wherever I can. I still can't really calculate how much a single card costs me because the ink usage is so hard to figure out. And I just kind of gave up and I was like, well, if I am profiting, this much, like it's fine. And the way that the business goes, it's like, I never know when the orders are going to come in. So it honestly, like, I just kind of roll with it as much as I can. And then, when I'm panicking about the mortgage, I'm like, oh, I got to get some wholesale orders in, I'll send an email out to my stores and be like, hey, you need a reorder, and so it kind of, it always works out. And I feel bad for saying that almost because I'm like, I didn't really calculate, but how do you calculate it? So I don't know. It's kind of difficult for sure to figure that out.
It is. But at some point you must have decided that the price of a card was going to be a certain amount.
Yeah. Just what was already existing, really.
Yeah. So you went with the market sort of pricing.
But even then, I actually feel like my cards are way less than what, you can get in a mass retailer store. Yeah. Because my cards are $4.50 now. They were $4 for a very long time. And then once COVID happened, I kind of had to raise it a little bit just because of the envelopes kind of raised up and stuff like that. But, when you go to the store, it's usually like $7. So I feel like,
yeah, it's a great.
And that's why people buy, 10 at a time because they are kind of, inexpensive.
Yes. So. And I'm thinking of the cards. You can go into those discount stores and they have the carousel and it has a sign at the top that says $1 or $2.
Oh, yeah.
But everybody knows what those cards are because they're sitting outside the shops. And if you're walking past them, you see them. And then you go to lovely boutique shops and I've got a favorite bookshop I go to and they have a beautiful small select range of cards. And like you said, they can be $7, $8, $10 even. Yes. Some cards. So there's this huge range, isn't there? Like most
there is a big range.
A big range. And yours is sitting nicely there in the middle at that $4.
Yeah, I forgot about those dollar cards.
Yeah. And they're fine for certain things,
Yes, they are, for something you really don't feel invested in, I guess.
or something that
quick and easy
if you just kind of see one. All right. So we had to buy one recently. The reason I've reminded myself of them is that I had to buy one recently because we can't, everything we're doing at the moment has to be online or click and collect. And I just needed a card quickly for someone. And I grabbed one that was kind of fun. And it was I think it was $2, but it just said what I needed it to say. And I could see it and I bought it and I needed to drop it that afternoon. So I hadn't time for click and collect. And
there's no time to wait for the order. Yeah,
that's right. Gotcha. So sometimes we just have to.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So let's go back to money. So you've got your pricing and then there's store pricing and there's website pricing. And is there different pricing for different things? Is that one of the things that you've had to think about?
The standard for wholesale is usually 50%. So my cards are actually still $2, even with my increase. I kept them at $2. That's kind of my in with stores is I think that I have one of the best prices for wholesale. And I sell to so many small boutiques. And I know that they don't have the storage for lots of cards, but B, they don't have a ton of capital, that they're not going to spend, $500. So I kind of try to keep it, I keep it reasonable because we're in this together. And I think that those stores, it's like $100 order doesn't seem like much, but when you have 500 different stores doing that, then that's different, so it's interesting.
Yeah. And so a small boutique, like you provide cards to everybody,
Yeah.
all kinds of stores.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Whoever wants
Fabulous.
them.
And I love what you
Anybody.
said. I love what you said about how when, you've got things to pay, that you make a round of calls and you call back to the wholesalers.
Yeah.
I used to do some work with a company, and when she had bills to pay, we used to do the same. It's like, who needs an order? And let's run down. Who
Yeah.
needs, it was a merchandising company, and it's like, who needs some new t-shirts? Who hasn't ordered some merchandise for a while? And
Exactly.
just go back to them and say, did you want to place an order? And often they do. They just need to be reminded.
They do
Yeah.
need the reminder.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
And for you to be front of mind, they go, oh yeah, I am kind of running low.
Right.
Okay, so over the years, I'm guessing that you've learned a few lessons because, as you said,
Yes.
you've been winging it. What would you do differently, Kelly? Like if there was something, and I know, like I'm listening to you, and you don't sound like the sort of person who is kind of beating themselves up about anything that happened, because things do work out. But if you were to just be that, if you could, what might you do differently?
I think that the biggest thing that has really changed, I wish I had gotten into lettering the cards by hand earlier on. I
Okay.
used to only use fonts, and it was kind of fun looking for different fonts. It used to be fun, but now I feel like the hand lettering, I can kind of, I kind of get my hands in there, and I can, be creating again. It's really become kind of a defining characteristic of my brand the past few years, and it's something I've really loved doing. And I think it adds to the cards. It becomes more unique that way. And it kind of adds to my life a little bit, like in my stress level. I love making them so much more now. It's not entirely, I mean, of course the message is still number one, but the design is I get to be much more creative now with that. So I think that would be something I think I could, I would embrace it earlier, because I was afraid of it when in the first
Mm,
few years.
mm.
Yeah.
And so, do you, just as your process, do you have like a big piece of paper and you write on it and draw the drawing and then kind of make that into the card, or how does that work?
I usually use an iPad with
Mm-hmm.
there's the Procreate app. You can kind of make anything. You can create your own brushes and things like that. So I use the Apple Pencil, and I kind of get to create that way. It's actually been a really cool tool that I've really enjoyed the past few years.
Yeah,
Just
and
just doing some lettering.
that probably wasn't around 12 years ago either.
That's true. Yeah, like it has really been a good tool to kind of get me creative again. And
Mm.
I hadn't really thought about that, but it wasn't around.
Yeah, and do you do your own drawings as well?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, they're gorgeous. I was looking at your
It's
Halloween
fun.
range. We
Oh
still
yeah,
don't have a
I've never
Halloween.
done Halloween. This is my first year doing it. My
There's some
husband
fun
was like,
ones.
"You need to make some silly ghost cards," and I was like, "All right, I guess."
And there
Like I
are
just,
some funny ones there.
yeah, they're so ridiculous.
Yeah, I think
But they
there's
do
some,
make you laugh though, right?
they
And
certainly do.
we need a laugh right now, right?
We certainly do. We do. So, has it been tough? Like, I use the word tough. That's my word, because I think there are tough days, there are good days and bad days. But, like we get through them, and it's just part of reality. Apart from the whole, 2020 thing and the COVID. But what makes business tough? Because in 12 years, you've had lots of different things, the ups and downs. What makes it tough, and how do you get through it?
I think for several years it was not tough. It was easy. It got a little harder when more quirky, funny card brands came around. I
Yes.
wasn't the only one realizing that was a missing market, which I love seeing, because that just furthers my happiness that people love it. There's plenty of pie for everyone, right?
Yeah.
I had to really, I feel like I had to kind of fight for my spot in the stores. So, what I was talking about earlier with my prices, I felt like they were always a tiny bit better. So I was able to really leverage that when the brands came in.
Yeah.
Um, some challenges were last year. I created COVID cards very, very quickly. And it actually turned out to be a wonderful season of more people that maybe didn't ever send cards kind of started to, which was kind of neat, so it was good. But it didn't, like 2020 didn't really act like the other years. So that was a
Mm,
challenge for me because I had been kind of used to just a general flow of things, like
mm,
wholesale orders and stuff like that, like in kind of I don't know, just a wave pattern, I guess, throughout the year. And that year it was very weird and disjointed, and some, stores really, really wanted cards, and, some said they couldn't sell them. And, it was up and down because everything just changed. Like
yeah,
periodically, it just was a new rule or whatever.
yeah,
So I think that was kind of an interesting time. I mean, it's, it wasn't truly bad, but I think it's been more of a challenge, just kind of staying in the market, keeping the designs as fresh as I can and relative to what's going on in our country too.
yeah,
Because I think that there's like maybe in just the past few years, people have really been kind of focused on the politics and everything. And I've actually created cards, like relating to all of that, and they've really done well. So I think that the climate of what's been going on is important for my design too.
yeah. That's so intuitive to really respond to the whole broad spectrum of how we're living today.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that's probably what will keep you at the forefront of
I
cards and
hope
card
so.
making.
I'm
Indeed.
trying.
Now, we can't do everything ourselves. Who have you asked for help? Who have you a team like? Who else is on your team? And it could be, an hour a week, an hour a month. Like, who else helps you out? And how did you go about figuring out who you needed to get to help you or to do the things?
Two different scenarios usually happen for me. And it's basically I'll have some people helping me research stores that could be a good fit, like a new store. And so they'll research and send me, just kind of information on these stores, and I'll reach out to them to see if they want to carry the cards. That's been really helpful because then I can kind of have leads, to different places that I wouldn't have been able to find myself. And then the other scenario is when I just get really backed up on orders and I need someone to help me package all the cards, because each card is packaged individually. I kind of just have people help me folding and putting envelopes with it and stuff like that. But I was kind of thinking about this question. I've spent a lot of time thinking about like asking for help. And I think that the best assistance that I ever got, and this was maybe on a little deeper level, I guess, was when my mom was sick. I was starting to create this idea. And at that time, my dad was letting me live in an apartment that he owned, and I didn't pay rent. And I think that was like the biggest help for me. Like, I didn't have very many expenses in the beginning because I was,
Yes.
living off of the bits of money I was finding under my mom's couch cushions, and it helped a lot. So I like to think like my parents were a huge help, if
Yeah.
only at the beginning, but I think that that was so helpful, and maybe that wasn't really the nature of your question, but I feel like I kind of had two different answers. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's a great answer. And, I think the point you make there of asking for help is that, like so often we get into business because we're independent, we want to, be
Hmm.
our own show. And so there's that reluctance or resistance to actually ask for help because that makes us feel like we're not running our own show. So it's the antithesis, isn't it?
Right.
And that help could
And
come in a variety of ways. Hmm.
And I think that it was hard for me to enter that situation.
Yeah.
It was very hard for me to ask for that. And it just so happened that there was an apartment open, it was almost a little kismet, it was crazy, but,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was unexpected the way that things kind of rolled out, I guess.
Yes, and it wasn't forever. It was temporary, and
No,
sometimes the
right.
help is only temporary that we need. So
But I
yeah,
knew
thank
that
you.
and I know that that help would still be there if I needed it. So that keeps me feeling secure and everything, I
Yeah.
guess, too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love what you said earlier about the other brands coming in and about how that kind of, but there's plenty of cards for everyone. And the fact that
Yeah.
it reinforces that there is a need for a range of different voices on the cards. There truly is, isn't there?
Right, exactly. My card brand can't be for everyone. It's
Mm.
certainly, sometimes it's a little too far. I feel like sometimes, it's
There's a few of them
definitely
that are
for,
a bit too far for me, I have to
yeah. So,
say.
but I
Yeah.
try to keep a good balance, like
Yeah.
some really
Yeah.
sweet ones. And
I can see I could have a drawer full of yours without any problem whatsoever. So
it's really
coaching or mentoring, have you sort of reached out to a coach or a mentor in any kind of capacity?
I don't think I really have.
Hmm.
I've always thought that I needed help with marketing, but I've never actually like taken the plunge. I think that I can try to figure it out on my own with a little research most of the time.
Yeah.
And I guess like sometimes that's a little break from what I'm usually doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm kind of feeling stale in a way, I guess like I can kind of try to research how to, SEO or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm not saying
And
I like SEO.
well, we have to understand that one, don't we?
I know.
When it comes to the financials, do you have a bookkeeper or an accountant? How do you keep yourself on track with that?
I don't have anyone. I have two charts. I have two Excel documents. One is a master spreadsheet of who carries my cards, which has been really helpful. I actually only started that 2 years ago out of 12. But and then I have the other one that has my numbers in it of how much each year. And that's it. I do monthly. I see what I do monthly. And then when I compare the months to different years, there's never a there's never a pattern. So I don't even know why I do it, to be honest. Like it's but I actually I was audited several years ago, and I feel like I kind of became my own CPA in that way. Like when that happened, I learned everything.
Yes.
I learned it the hard way,
Yes.
so like now I know exactly how to keep all of that
Yeah.
information. So I kind of
Yeah.
became my own bookkeeper, I guess. It was a
Yeah.
little depressing, but
But that staying on the legal side of financials is critical for a business.
it sure is. Yep,
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
got to keep those documents.
Yeah. Keep that and if it's not for you to do it, then get someone who knows, get a CPA or get somebody to do it so that
Yeah.
you are, because it's a part of our legal obligation, and that's
Yes.
what we need to do.
Mhm.
Okay, so three characteristics, and you've you've been talking for a little while, so we kind of know a little bit about you. What do
Yeah.
you think are the three characteristics that have helped make you successful in business?
So the first one, hard work.
Yeah.
There's no substitute. I'm kind of a workaholic, so it's something I've been working on, but I also love doing it. The
Yes.
ability to do something for years and years constantly and not hate it is something that really you have to like. That's going to make you successful. If when you're creating something, you gotta like at the beginning, you have to see yourself. Okay, do I see myself, doing this fun thing forever, and I'll never get sick of it, which you do get a little sick of it, but you got to be able to, muscle through it and not like, but I think that's important at the beginning, to make sure, hey, do I see myself making a ton of this item?
Yeah.
Because if you become successful, that's what you're doing. My number one card from 10 years ago, still my number one card. And I still have to sell a ton of it. And even though I'm tired of looking at it, I still have to create it and push it just as much as I did on day one. Right. So, and then also being fearless, not being afraid to take, the huge leap that new designs that might push the envelope or spending, a big hunk of money on supplies and not knowing if everything will get used. I've had I've had some failures on like different kinds of products. I should have just stayed with cards the whole time, but
Ah,
there's little weirdness with cards. Like you feel pressure to like also carry enamel pins and pencils and notepads and, all of these other things that are in
yes,
a paper store.
yes,
But my bread and butter is just the card. So it's
yes.
kind of like I should just stay with it. But uh anyway, I feel like there's like a lot of ways to show that you're fearless in entrepreneurship. You have plenty of opportunities to take risks. But it's been really important to me and not as scary as it used to be.
That's
Not
so good. I was
no
thinking
pun in.
bookmarks. I was,
Yeah, I know, right? There's always something.
yeah,
And I like creating new things too. I mean,
yeah.
I've fallen in love with like these handmade watercolors, and I've bought a ton of them. And but I just, I don't have time to do it. One, and two, it's different than anything that I have on my site. So it's like it doesn't really go with it. So I'm
Yes.
like, oh, that's what they call a hobby. And and so I'm like, okay, so separating what I only want to do as a hobby and then what I can do as this business. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's really insightful.
Yeah.
Really, Kelly. So let's just so we had hard work and fearless were two. What was your third characteristic? Did we?
I guess that's it.
That's fine. That's fine. Two's good. I wasn't sure if I missed the third one. I didn't
Yeah,
want to
no, I
be
guess that was only
disrespectful.
two.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Those two are fantastic.
Two are good.
Two are fantastic. All right. So as we wrap this up, actually, I do want to ask you: is there a card that you love but nobody loved? Has that ever happened?
Oh,
A
yeah.
product that you've made that, like, not the books and the notebooks and the pens and kind of stuff that wasn't really, but have you ever made a card? You don't have to tell us which one, but have you ever made a card and somebody didn't love it?
Definitely. That's actually happened like a lot,
Yeah.
in many different ways. I feel like there's been situations where someone was offended by the card.
Oh, yes.
And that has happened a few times, like different kinds of like cancer cards, like, how can you joke about cancer? And it's like,
Yes.
well, the person that has the cancer probably wants to. But,
Yes.
so that kind of comes and goes. I have created some designs that I thought were really cool, or they were really, it was like a really beautiful card, and nobody really liked the message. So sometimes
Okay.
that happens. That kind of makes me sad because I'm like, okay, well, now can I make this art into something else, or something like that. So I don't know. It kind of, you're never going to please everyone, I guess, but
Yeah.
it's sometimes it does make me sad when I think like, oh, this card is going to be so awesome. Like it makes me laugh just looking at it, and nobody buys it. And I think to myself, like, am I not funny anymore because I'm 39? Like, I don't know. Cause I started this in my 20s. Am I not, I'm almost 40 now. And I
Yeah. Are
worry
you losing
sometimes if I'm still, yeah, the thought of that terrifies me
it?
so much. I should know that my customer is growing old with me, I guess, or, like it's not like we're aging in reverse. I can't change that. So
Well, you could also just take heart, Kelly, in the fact that Friends, the TV show Friends, which has been
yeah.
around forever, like we've all
Mhm.
grown up with Friends. There are 20-year-olds and teenagers
That is a
discovering
great
Friends.
example.
So
That is
that
a
is,
great
like
example.
once you're timeless, and if your cards are timeless, then there's going to be
You don't
generation
have
after.
anything to worry about.
There's
Yeah.
20-year-olds that are just going to love those cards that you created when you were 20.
I
Do you
hope
get
so.
creative block? Like, because I love to
Mhm.
read. I don't write, but well, I write blogs and my newsletter. But I hear authors talking about having like a discipline of how they just create words every single day, and that's how you get to the end of a book.
Yeah.
What happens when you kind of sit and there's a blank iPad, and what happens?
That's a good question. I usually will keep a list in my phone or somewhere of different ideas that I think will really be good.
Mm,
And I kind of jot them down, and I don't sit down with that iPad until I have some solid stuff. Like I come up with new designs relatively often. I try every month or every month and a half or so. But I'm not gonna I can't come at it empty, I gotta like have some concrete, at least a message, and then I can kind of create artwork around it, I feel like.
Yeah.
And that helps a lot. But if I am kind of stumbling when I start drawing things out, I just know it's the wrong time to do it.
Yeah.
I and then I maybe need to watch some true crime or something like that to kind of get me, I don't know, get distraction or something. I think it's just not the right time. So I kind of step out, I guess.
Okay.
I haven't really felt that. I haven't really felt much pressure in that area. I kind of just wait until that's just kind of what I feel like doing. Like, oh, it's been a little bit since I've made some designs, so maybe I'll take a stab at some of these ideas. My idea list is 100 miles long. It's ridiculous. There's so much on there, and the majority of the ideas will not come to fruition. But
so there's more ideas than there is cards to
it's
put
like
them on.
it becomes gibberish too, because I type it so quickly in there, and I everything's spelled wrong and stuff, so it's like I don't even know what I have written most of the time. But
oh dear, that's so funny. Kelli, we could talk forever. Colette Paperie is where to go. It's on Instagram, it's Facebook, it's a website. As we draw this to a close, what would be your words of wisdom to the audience who are early days in business or interested in business or thinking about getting started? What would you leave us with, please?
I think number one, and this is based on messages that I have gotten asking me, is stop asking others how to do things. Figure it out on your own. That's the only way to learn it. You can't just continue to, like, people just they want to ask, I want to start my own business. What should I do? And it's like a lot. I don't know. And people are constantly sending me emails saying like, do you have any suggestions on how to make my own card line? And, it's like, oh, well, I guess I can spend an hour writing you the longest email ever, but it's kind of like, I don't know that the words would matter. You know what I mean? Like, I think you have to learn them. You got to learn everything on your own. You can't like take these shortcuts, I guess.
Yeah,
I get a little frustrated because I want to help people, but I don't have time. And, there's a lot of questions, and a lot of people want me to make custom cards too. So it's like, I get all these requests all the time. But I think that's the main thing that I would say is just figure out how to do something yourself. I mean, with my audit, I had to really learn a lot, and there was a lot of Google searching, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But you can figure most things out on your own, just kind of, I don't know, be explorative, be open to learning something new, because, we don't know how to do things. We weren't taught that in whatever school, Yeah.
Just figure it out.
Answer, sorry.
No, that's a great answer. I love it. Okay. Kelli, thanks a million. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
How fun is this conversation? And as Kelli says right there at the end, be explorative and be open to learning something new. And now for all the people who want to know how Kelli created this business, they can listen to this episode and she doesn't have to spend an hour writing the longest email, as she just said there. It's all right here in the podcast. You can find the cards at colettepaperie.com and the same for Instagram, Facebook. Kelli does everything herself and she has built this truly viable business. I'd love to hear what your standouts are from this conversation. You can email me, ingrid@healthynumbers.com.au, and let me know. One of my favorite things she says is there is plenty of pie for everyone, and I truly believe this is true of every business. No matter what we are in, there are plenty of customers, plenty of clients for everyone. When we pursue business and entrepreneurship based on core values and deepest integrity, and at the same time build a financially successful business, we live richer, fuller lives. As I always ask, what action are you inspired to take today? Till the next time, thanks for listening.